So I'm here to do a review between the Oreck Conquer and the Riccar Superlight Deluxe. Um, Pretty much just a basic overview. I had a request. I feel bad because I've had some other requests that I haven't done that I should be doing first, but they're mostly canister reviews and they're a little bit harder to work with and get all set up. I have flour here under the carpet, and you can see they're equal piles, but this is what happens. It clumps up like that, so I don't really know as to how fair of a comparison it's going to be. So I'll grab my shoes and okay, so one pile's right here. That should be good. And then there's a pile here. So there are the piles with the shoes, and I'm going to layer this over so we can later see um, where to vacuum. Um, Now, I should probably get some oatmeal or something, but I just wasted a bag of oatmeal. I already tried doing this review, but then I got frustrated with the under the flour or under the carpet flour thing. I tried powdered sugar. That clumps worse. The flour, again, I don't feel like it's as fair as a comparison. I'm sure I'm using too much, but when you use too little, especially on hardwood floors like this, it's still not fair because it seeps into the cracks and the crevices and things, and I don't have non-hardwood anywhere else in the house that I can put a rug on that isn't a rubber back. So that's as close as it's going to get. So we'll just see how well they do and if they can pull any flour up from underneath. I mean, they have equal amounts. They're both clumpy looking, so we'll see which one has the agitation to maybe vibrate, break it down, and see what it can do. What I found with the video I just tried to do was these two machines are actually very comparable. And the reasons are these, and I mean in performance, not even so much features. Of course, they're both geared towards people who want a lightweight vacuum, but they both pull themselves across the carpet. The Riccar is a little bit more aggressive, but you can see it is moving. Just not as much as the Riccar. But again, that's the difference between a metal brush roll and a wooden brush roll, but still pretty powerful. The Riccar is louder than the Oreck. It has a bigger motor in it. The Oreck doesn't have as big of a motor. But again, they both pull themselves across the carpet. The Oreck tends to pull itself kind of like in a slight favored motion towards its left. I don't know if that's just because the belt is mounted on that side or what it is per se, but it just seems to, I guess. The Oreck Conquer has a swivel neck, so I guess I should try and compare these, just a general based Oreck, I guess, but I was asked to do an Oreck of my choice, and this one was suggested, which this one was off the top of my head, because this one's actually still sold. It's probably the closest competition as you're going to be able to get to a Riccar. So I guess I could talk about build quality. The build quality on the Oreck is, this plastic hood is about the same, but when you come over to these non-glossy surfaces, it has a lot more heavy-duty feel to it than the Riccar does. Now, the Oreck doesn't have as good of a bumper on it. It's just kind of like a rubberized plastic, whereas the Riccar has more of a rubber material to it. Though the Oreck has a little bit slightly larger cleaning width, just very slightly. I prefer the headlight on the Oreck much more than the Riccar's. Not that they don't both perform really well, but I like the LEDs being closer to the carpet. because it shows you what's immediately in front of the vacuum compared to the one that's mounted up a little bit higher. Now, they make vacuums without headlights, so it's not a question of performance, that just because it has a headlight doesn't mean that it's going to clean any better than one without. But the Riccar does not have edge brushes, whereas the Oreck does. I also know, speaking of, because I was thinking about replacement parts, Orecks tend to come with better warranties, and they tend to have more service centers. They're easier to get your hands on. Even bag replacements, if you really don't care about HEPA filtration or bag quality, the Orecks are all bagged machines, essentially. So pretty much all the bags are universal except for ones that fit the magnesium and the halo. They are separate bags. But other than that, this takes a standard Oreck CC style bag. The Riccar takes its own special bag. Whereas, Oreck, I doubt will ever shy away from their bagged upright design with this type. Riccar sells canisters and other uprights, and they also sell some bagless as well. But what I'm getting at is, if you really want to choose a company that's going to continuously produce bags for the machine more than the other, not saying that one of these is going to go out of business, but the Oreck is going to be a little bit more dependable. I mean, they geared their whole entire vacuum to pretty much look entirely like this. They haven't really strayed away from that, whereas Riccar offers a lot more. So maybe you can take that and run with it, and maybe find a whole different Riccar other than the one that's here in front of you. But to me, that's kind of like a dealership support sort of factor. The filtration on these machines, I've heard some complaints or people talk about the air leaking around the bag collars and things. Mine doesn't have any leaking problems anywhere on it. And they revised this swivel neck design, which is something that the Oreck has over the Riccar, with their first, which was the Oreck Aviator, was their first swivel model. They had a slightly different neck design. Then they maybe tweaked it with the Platinum Pilot. This would be pretty much the Platinum Pilot predecessor, even though this is closest to an XL21. I mean that as in, there really isn't a difference except for they did the jam protection and the lifetime belt on this compared to the Platinum Pilot. Otherwise, they're pretty much the same machine, whereas the magnesium is a totally different build, totally different. The handle, the power head, everything, the bags, the whole machine is really strange, totally different vacuum cleaner all around, different brush roll, different belts, the whole bit. But they also have a different swivel neck for that machine too. This one kind of looks like a tennis ball, is the way that it's designed. Since we're down here, the wheels on the Oreck are smaller and they're close together, whereas they're larger and farther apart on the Riccar. I think that this really helps it to clean and push across the carpet much easier, especially with that self-propelled feel, and it kind of digs more than the Oreck does. And I also noticed that the it almost acts like a typical upright vacuum, whereas the Oreck feels and vacuums like an Oreck would. I think that if you had tried one or owned one and tried something else, you'd notice a difference in the way that it moves across the carpet, even the way that it sounds. Orecks kind of strain on the push and then they speed up on the pull. The Riccar doesn't really do that at all. It's constant performance all the time. So you may feel that the vacuum isn't doing as well if you're vacuuming with the Oreck on deeper pile carpets. Though I think that they both clean pretty comparably, like I said. The Oreck's a taller machine. I think that its controls are easier to use. They're both pretty much the same controls, but this one you actually have to reach farther down with your thumb. It's not right there at your fingertip. Whereas with this, I mean, you could turn this off with your index finger because it's right underneath. So this one's actually a little bit easier to touch and get a hold of, but I've also noticed it's very easy to switch accidentally because it's just a very faint touch will flick the high speed down to the low speed. And because it has a slow start and a slow transition between the speeds, you don't notice it until it's slowed down a couple seconds later. The Riccar is instant, though I have heard some strange sounds when flipping between speeds that the Oreck, I think that slow transition helps it, and it will probably prolong the life of the motor compared to the Riccar, whereas it's instant on, instant speed switch, especially if you're switching from high to low. It just has like this strange hesitation sound where it's got to slow the motor down. The Riccar has a pedal release, though the Oreck doesn't. It doesn't have any problems with standing up. It's very secure. The power nozzle really doesn't give and flop down when you put it in the upright position. So that's something to think of. Now, the Riccar lays totally flat. The Oreck can too, but you actually have to swivel the bag to face the ground. You have to completely flip the whole vacuum pretty much backwards in order to vacuum underneath things, and then the vacuum pretty much is locked in that position, and you have to swivel it back up and around. So it's a little bit more inconvenient. I don't think that it's really designed to work that way. So if you're looking for something to clean underneath beds, not only does this lay flat, but it has a harder outside material on it than the Oreck does to protect the vacuum from rips in the bag, because these are fan first machines or direct air machines. When I did the review earlier, the Riccar's agitation is much more noticeable across even this carpet compared to the Oreck. Though, when I did a pile of salt that I hid in the carpet, neither of them you could see the salt come up out of the carpet. You could hear it, but you couldn't see it. When I took the Riccar, which I thought would deep clean better than the Oreck, over to the salt pile that I made for the Oreck, I didn't hear any salt come up, nor did I see any little granules that came up. So I think the Oreck cleans, this specific Oreck, in most cases will clean just as well, but that's not necessarily meaning that you're getting a bargain by going with this over that one, because the Oreck costs more than this one, or costs more than the Riccar. So I pretty much just saved this flour test for last, as you can see here. So I'm going to do that before, I'm not going to do a pickup. I've already pretty much just gone over everything. Overall, at the moment, I would say both of these machines, and this is really hard to push across the carpet when it's not on, because it has that squish. It just squishes into the carpet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I did 8 passes, and I'll do 8 passes with the Riccar as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Every time I do that, it's just instinctively with my Orecks, I flip the switch all the way backwards, which is low speed for the Riccar, but it's off for the Oreck. So, you can see the Riccar, though it had a slightly more matted down pile, didn't really miss a beat. The Oreck did. It missed a little bit, but you can see it's pretty squished down. So what I'll do is I'll take the Riccar and see if we can clean over it and see if we can make a difference. I have a feeling, though, because the Oreck kind of squished it all down, it may not pick up as much, nor may it not pick up all of it. I feel stupid, nor may it not pick up all of it. That's a mouthful. So, I don't want that to fall backwards. We can take a peek, and it kind of pushed it all backwards. It's kind of strange. Let me know what you guys think, and please like, comment, and subscribe.